Anthony Richardson's ceiling is limitless. The guy has almost unmatched physical skills. We're talking about a guy that has invoked shades of Cam Newton.
Why do I feel like if I had to handicap it right now, I would say I feel like there's a better chance Daniel Jones is their week 1 starter than Anthony Richardson?
When Anthony Richardson heard his name called as the 4th overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, it felt like the start of something special. Colts fans were fired up after years of quarterback roulette, jumping from Phillip Rivers to Carson Wentz to Matt Ryan. Finally, there was hope. Richardson had it all. He was fast, he was strong, he could throw the football 70 yards off his back foot and bulldoze linebackers with his legs. His combine numbers were staggering: 6 feet 4 inches tall, 244 pounds, with a 4.4 speed and a vertical leap of over 40 inches. He wasn't just a quarterback, he was a walking highlight reel, a physical specimen, if you will. Scouts called him the next Cam Newton. Fans dreamed about the future, with a new head coach in Shane Steichen, who had just helped Jalen Hurts reach the Super Bowl in Philly. It all made sense. The Colts were finally going to build something real. But 2 years later, Richardson is already fighting for his job. He's missed more games than he's played. He's been benched, tapped out of a game once. The team just signed Daniel Jones to compete for the starting spot. And now, some people think the Colts are actually ready to move on entirely. What the heck happened? So how did a quarterback with this much talent, this much promise, go from being the future of the franchise to possibly looking for his next team before his rookie contract even ends? To understand all this, we have to go back to the very start of Anthony Richardson's journey, because what happened to him wasn't just about injuries or bad games. Before he ever threw a pass in the NFL, Anthony Richardson had already become one of the most talked about prospects in years. Not because of his stats, but because of what he might become. Let's get one thing clear. Richardson didn't dominate college football. If you only looked at his numbers, you might wonder, why was he even in the conversation as a top 5 pick? He started just 13 games for the Florida Gators. In 2022, his only full season as a starter, he completed just 53.8% of his passes. He threw 17 touchdowns with 9 interceptions. His team was 6-6. That's not first-round material. That's not even second-round material. But Richardson wasn't just a prospect you judged on paper. You judged him on the moments, the glimpses, the jaw-dropping plays that made you sit up. He could take a designed run, lower his shoulder into a linebacker, and pick up 20 yards like it was nothing. He could escape pressure, roll out to his right, and launch a missile 60 yards downfield to a receiver in stride. He looked like he belonged on a Madden cover, not in a college classroom. Scouts call him a freak of nature. Analysts compared his traits to guys like Cam Newton, Dante Culpepper, and even Josh Allen. The term boom or bust got thrown around a lot, and everyone agreed. Richardson had the highest ceiling in the draft, and maybe the lowest floor. Still, his combine performance sealed the deal. He didn't just pass the eye test, he obliterated it. But then came the numbers: a 40.5-inch vertical, a 10'9" broad jump, and a blazing 4.4 in the 40-yard dash. For context, those are the kind of stats you'd expect from elite wide receivers or athletic linebackers, not a quarterback. It felt almost unfair. When he jumped, it looked like gravity simply took a break for a moment. His relative athletic score, or RAS, was a perfect 10.0, joining Cam Newton and Dante Culpepper as the only quarterbacks in NFL history with that kind of athletic profile. That's all the Colts needed to see. In the pre-draft process, Indianapolis kept the cards close to the chest. They were picking 4th. Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud were expected to go early. The Colts were rumored to like Will Levis. Some insiders even thought they might trade down. But in the end, they stuck at pick 4 and made their move. Anthony Richardson, quarterback, Florida. He was raw, sure, but he had the tools. And with Shane Steichen, who had just turned Jalen Hurts into a near MVP running the offense, Colts fans had real reason to believe. This wasn't just a quarterback pick. This was a swing for the fences, a gamble on greatness, a bet on upside over safety. The Colts knew Richardson might need time, but if it worked, the reward could be massive. Draft night interviews were full of excitement. Richardson talked about his journey, his mom, his little brother, what it meant to be picked that high, how he was ready to prove everyone wrong who said he wasn't ready. Coach GM Chris Ballard called him a, quote, rare athlete. The team's front office said they believed in his work ethic, his humility, and his ceiling. Even the critics who questioned the pick had to admit, if anyone can turn this project into a star, it was Shane Steichen. The fans bought in. Colts jerseys with Richardson on the back flew off the shelves. Training camp attendance shot up. NFL Twitter was full of clips from OTAs. Richardson throwing lasers, making defenders miss, launching deep bombs to wideouts who barely had to slow down. For a franchise that spent years bouncing from QB to QB, this finally felt different. They had their guy, or so they thought. Anthony Richardson's rookie year started with real promise and ended with real concern. Training camp 2023 was electric. From day one, Richardson looked confident. Not perfect, but confident. Shane Steichen threw him into the fire, giving him first-team reps early. And by mid-August, the Colts made it official. Anthony Richardson was the starting quarterback for Week 1. That's rare for a rookie, especially one with as little starting experience as Richardson had. But the Colts were betting on traits, not polish. Week 1 came against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It wasn't a win, but it wasn't a disaster either. Richardson completed 24 of 37 for 223 yards on the touchdown with 1 interception. He also added 40 yards rushing and a score on the ground. He looked raw, but also dangerous. That mix of athleticism and his ability to improvise kept the defense honest. Every time he dropped back, you could feel the energy. The deep ball had pop and the legs had juice. In Week 2 against Houston, Richardson rushed for 2 early touchdowns. His ability in the red zone looked like a straight cheat code. But then, disaster. On the second touchdown run, he hit the back of his head on the turf and left the game with a concussion. His day was done. And just like that, the injury trend began. He missed Week 3 as a result of the concussion, and during Week 4, he returned against the Rams. And this time, Richardson showed the full picture, including explosive plays, improvisation, and a near-miracle comeback. He threw for 2 touchdowns, ran for another, and helped erase a huge second-half deficit. The Colts lost in overtime, but Richardson's stock was going up. Unfortunately, that didn't last. Week 5 against the Tennessee Titans would be the last time Colts fans saw him in 2023. On a routine run, Richardson fell awkward on his right shoulder. The diagnosis? A grade 3 AC joint sprain. Season ending. He needed surgery. 4 games. That's all the Colts got in year 1. His final rookie stat line was 577 passing yards, 136 rushing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns, and 1 interception. His completion rate was 59.5%. Not bad, but not incredible. Still, it was just a small sample. But Colts fans were left with more questions than answers. Could he really stay healthy? Could he throw consistently? Could he really be the guy? Those answers would have to wait. The 2024 season was supposed to be the reset, the breakout, the year Anthony Richardson became the star. He had the job from day one. He had a full offseason to recover and prepare. Shane Steichen revamped the playbook to fit Richardson's strengths. Design runs, play actions, RPOs. The team's offensive weapons weren't elite, but they weren't bad either. Michael Pittman Jr. returned. Jonathan Taylor was healthy again, and rookie wideout Josh Downs was coming into his own. There were tools, there was structure, but something felt off from the jump. In the season opener, Richardson uncorked a monster 65-yard bomb to Alec Pierce. That made highlight reels across the country, but the rest of the game was ugly. Richardson completed just 9 of 19 passes, with one of those being a pick 6. The Colts lost. The flash was still there, but the consistency was not. In Week 2 and Week 3, the trend continued. Deep ball highlights combined with short passes that were off the mark. Richardson was making the big plays look easy and the easy plays look impossible. How do we do that? But that's when the oblique injury hit. Richardson missed Week 5 and 6, which set him back even further. But what really changed the narrative was Week 8. Against the Texans, Richardson completed just 10 of 32 passes. The throws weren't just off, they were terrible. Screens thrown at players' feet, wide open slants thrown behind receivers. One play after a long scramble, Richardson signaled to the end and tapped out. He took himself out of the game. He said he needed a breather. In football, that's unheard of, especially from a quarterback, especially in a close game. The media exploded. Former players, TV analysts, fans on Twitter, you name it, everyone had something to say. Was he out of shape? Was he overwhelmed? Was he just not built for this? Pat McAfee, the Colts' unofficial media mouthpiece, crushed him, and so did others. Even some teammates admitted it wasn't the standard. Later, McAfee apologized for being too harsh, but the damage was done. The trust was shaken, and not long after that, Richardson was benched, and Joe Flacco stepped in. Flacco came in and did what Richardson couldn't: run the offense. The 39-year-old Super Bowl winning quarterback wasn't flashy. He wasn't running read options or throwing lasers, but he made quick decisions. He completed over 60% of his passes. The Colts won 2 of the first 3 starts. The passing game looked smoother. The locker room seemed more focused. That only made Richardson look worse. People started asking, why does this team look better with a past his prime quarterback under center? When Richardson got another chance in Week 11, he had one of his best games of the year. He threw for a career-high 272 yards and led a game-winning drive against the Jets. He also added 2 rushing touchdowns. The hype briefly returned, but of course, it didn't last. His accuracy issues resurfaced the next week. Completion percentage dropped again. Misreads, overthrows, drive-killing mistakes. The Colts started losing. By week 14, Richardson had started 10 games in total. The Colts were 4-6 in those games, and his numbers, rough. His completion percentage was 47.7. He had 1,814 passing yards and threw for 8 touchdowns with 12 interceptions. His passer rating was 61.6. According to Pro Football Focus, Richardson ranked 31st out of 32 qualified quarterbacks in accuracy on throws under 10 yards. That's insane. That's supposed to be the easiest part of the job. For Richardson, it was a straight nightmare. The Colts needed to win Week 17 to stay in line for a playoff hunt. And did they choose Richardson? No. They went with the cagey veteran Joe Flacco. Richardson was back on the bench again. That told everyone everything they needed to know. The Colts, who had invested the 4th overall pick just 18 months earlier, didn't trust him in the biggest moments of the season. And then the offseason happened. When the 2025 offseason started, no one expected the Colts to go shopping for another quarterback. At least not like this. I mean, sure, Anthony Richardson had a rocky 2024, but he was still young, still in a rookie contract, still the guy the franchise spent the number 4 overall pick on. You usually don't just give up on that kind of investment. Not this early. But then came the bombshell. The Indianapolis Colts signed Daniel Jones to a 1-year deal worth $14 million. Yeah, Daniel Jones, the former Giants quarterback, the guy who had one decent season in 2022, and they followed it up with a 1-5 start, a torn ACL, and back-to-back years of ugly football. That Daniel Jones. On paper, it didn't make sense until you looked a little closer. Daniel Jones might not be great. He might not even be that good, but he brought something the Colts desperately lacked: experience, stability. Even if it was average quarterback play, it was something they could rely on. And most importantly, it was pressure. This wasn't about replacing Richardson on day one. This was about pushing him. The Colts' message was clear: we're done waiting. Either you figure it out now, or someone else will take your job. And to be honest, some around the league believe Jones could actually win the competition. He's in prime position right now to get that job. But despite all the hate, Daniel Jones has shown real flashes in the past. In 2022, he completed 67% of his passes, threw for over 3,200 yards, and led the Giants to the playoffs. He rushed for over 700 yards and scored 7 touchdowns on the ground. He earned a contract extension because he played clean, smart football. He managed games and made plays when needed. I must say, he really didn't deserve the contract he got. We all know who really should have got the contract, but I digress. He also had more than 60 career starts under his belt, and that stuff matters. Former Buccaneers head coach Bruce Arians went on the Colts' official YouTube channel and dropped a comment that raised a lot of eyebrows. Anthony needed 2 more years in college, not as an athlete, but as a passer. I didn't see him ready to beat teams in 2-minute drills or on third down. It's one thing for somebody to say it, but when your own team's media is posting content like that, it really say a lot. Fans started debating, was Richardson still the future? Or was he all ready to pass? In football, that stuff happens fast. Will Daniel Jones start week 1? Was the Richardson experience over before it even got started? Nobody had the answers yet, but the pressure was mounting. And what came next only made things worse. June 2025 was supposed to be Anthony Richardson's comeback tour. He had months to recover, months to reset. The quarterback competition with Daniel Jones was set to begin in training camp. This was Richardson's chance to prove he was still the franchise guy. Instead, he didn't take a single rep. Head coach Shane Steichen announced that Richardson would miss mandatory minicamp with shoulder soreness. It was the same shoulder, the throwing shoulder, the one he had surgery on just a year prior. Now, maybe that doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you've already missed most of 2 seasons with injuries, and now your surgically repaired shoulder is flaring up again, yeah, it's a big deal. The Colts say they were being cautious, that Richardson had been throwing with velocity during private workouts in Florida, that he was on track for training camp. But the timing literally couldn't have been worse. He was supposed to be battling for his job. Instead, Daniel Jones took every first-team rep. He was the guy in front of coaches, in front of teammates, building chemistry, taking charge. And Richardson was standing on the sidelines in a hoodie. And that's when more noise started. NFL insiders speculated that the Colts were preparing to move on, and that if Jones outperformed Richardson in camp, the team might shop their former top pick around the league. In 2 seasons, Richardson had missed 13 games due to injury. He had the lowest completion percentage in the league. He had more interceptions than touchdowns. He took himself out of a game because he was tired. And now, he wasn't even healthy enough to compete in minicamp. Colts ownership had changed too. Longtime owner Jim Irsay had passed away in early 2025. His daughters now run the team. One of them, Carly Irsay Gordon, was the CEO. But the reason I bring this up is because she didn't draft Richardson. She has no emotional attachment to him. And she's reportedly very involved in football operations. New ownership, new standards. And with Daniel Jones already on the roster, and he's making more than some starting quarterbacks in this league, this isn't your typical quarterback battle. This is a career battle. The writing is on the wall. But let's zoom out for a second, because what's going on with Anthony Richardson isn't just about Anthony Richardson. It's about the NFL handles young quarterbacks in general, and how the league has completely lost its way when it comes to developing them. There was a time not that long ago when teams gave quarterbacks time to grow, time to make mistakes, time to develop. They understood that learning how to play the hardest position in sports didn't happen overnight. I know everybody's not Peyton Manning, of course, but he threw 28 interceptions as a rookie. That is the most ever. Still, the Colts went 3-13. If he came into the league today, he might get benched by week 10 and be replaced by a veteran bridge quarterback. Here's another example. Troy Aikman. He went 0-11 in his rookie year. He looked overwhelmed, confused, inaccurate. The Cowboys didn't bail. They stuck with him. He ended up winning 3 Super Bowls. But let me bring up somebody currently playing the position. Josh Allen, shall we? He was called a bust after his rookie season in Buffalo. People mocked the pick, said he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Then he developed, slowly. And now he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and he just won league MVP. The point I'm making is, in today's NFL, teams expect perfection immediately. If a quarterback doesn't light it up in the first 10 games, the media turns on them, fans call for a new guy, front offices panic, and coaches start looking over their shoulders. But let's look at some other recent examples. Zach Wilson was the number 2 pick in 2021. By year 3, he was benched multiple times, shipped out of New York, and labeled a bust. Trey Lance, picked number 3 overall, barely got on the field in San Francisco before being traded to Dallas, and now he's a backup behind Justin Herbert. Justin Fields had some incredible moments in Chicago, but after 2 years of bad protection and bad coaching, the Bears gave up. Mac Jones was in the Pro Bowl as a rookie. By year 3, he was benched and traded to be a backup. It's a pattern. Teams are swinging for high upside QBs and bailing the second it gets hard. Richardson fits right into that narrative. He was the ultimate boom or bust prospect. Everyone knew he needed time. Everyone said it. But when the game started, nobody gave him that time. The Colts threw him in immediately. He got hurt. He struggled. And now they're looking at Daniel Jones as the safer option. That's not just about Richardson failing. That's about the system failing. Quarterbacks need development. They need coaching. They need stability. They need reps. They need the freedom to screw up and learn from it. But the NFL doesn't care about that anymore. It cares about wins. And if you can't deliver them in year 1 or year 2, they move on and they'll have you holding a clipboard on some other team being a backup. And Richardson might be next. Let's say this really is the end in Indy. Let's say Richardson doesn't win the starting job in training camp. Let's say Daniel Jones plays well. Let's say the Colts decide they're done. What happens next? He probably gets traded, maybe even cut. There's always a team out there willing to take a shot on a guy with Richardson's traits, especially on a cheap rookie deal. But here's the harsh truth. Once you lose your first job in the NFL, it's really hard to ever get another. Look at Paxton Lynch. Look at Josh Rosen. Once a team gives up on you, the rest of the league starts to believe that maybe they were right. That could be Richardson's future. And the tragedy is, the talent is there. He runs like a tight end. He still has one of the strongest arms in football. He still has time. He's only 23. We've seen late career revisions before. Ryan Tannehill was labeled a bust in Miami. Then he went to Tennessee and found success. Geno Smith was writing off for years. Then he landed in Seattle and made the Pro Bowl. Jared Goff was traded away by the Rams and now has the Lions believing they're Super Bowl contenders. It's possible. It's always possible. However, once your own team gives up on you, you're no longer the franchise. You're a backup. You're disposable. And for Richardson, a guy with this much natural ability would be a waste. Because when you really watch the tape, you see it. You see the flashes. That Week 4 comeback in his rookie year, that 65-yard bomb in 2024, that game-winning drive against the Jets, those weren't flukes. Those were glimpses of what he could be. But in today's NFL, glimpses aren't good enough. Anthony Richardson has all the tools, size, speed, and arm strength, like few we've ever seen. But in the NFL, raw talent isn't enough. Injuries, inaccuracy, and inconsistency derailed his early career. The league moves fast. Too fast if you ask me. Now he's fighting for a second chance before his first one ever even finished. Maybe he rebounds. Maybe he fades away. Either way, he's another example of how quickly the NFL chews up quarterbacks who aren't ready, no matter how gifted they are. The question now isn't what the Colts will do, but more of whether Richardson ever gets a real shot to become what he could have been. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.